It was very disrespectful. Thank God he didn't go to the rack. It probably would have been worse for him. But at a time like that, I think he should just let the clock run out.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Fantrax and Basketball Monster. And today's Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast is also brought to you by Blue Apron. Go to blueapron.com/LOFB to get yourself 3 free meals. Today's show is also brought to you by our Patreon sponsor, and that is Varun the Truth. So if you want to be a sponsor like Varun the Truth, head across to patreon.com/redrock_bball. My name is Josh Lloyd, and you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at redrock_bball and facebook.com/redrockbasketball. Bit of an earlier show today, obviously, because there is just the one game on. So we're going to get the preview for Tuesday's action, the 11 games for Tuesday out of the way now, and go through all of those games that we've got on Tuesday for DFS purposes. And then back tomorrow, we'll be back with the standard show, the recap of Tuesday and the preview of Wednesday. So
let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. We're going to go straight into just previewing these games. Again, a bit of a different show, a bit of a shorter show, again, because it's only we're only looking at the preview for Tuesday's action. Let's get stuck into that now. The first one of those games on Tuesday is Orlando and Cleveland. And just another reminder, this is a time of the year for DFS that I do think that you should be really scaling back what you do, because there are weird rests. We'll see that when we get to Dallas with multiple guys either ruled out or questionable with rest, players having limited minutes, weird situations cropping up out of nowhere, and it does take away a lot of the skill out of DFS when that stuff happens after lock and fluky sort of performances come in. So I'm not telling you guys not to play, because I know I'm never going to be able to do that, and it's no point in me saying that. But just watch what you're doing and perhaps cut back on volume at this point of the year and ramp that back up during the playoffs. As I said, the first one of these games we're going to talk about is the Orlando Magic. They're taking on the Cleveland Cavs. The Cavs are favored by... That sounds bad. You can say the Cavs, or you can say the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavs doesn't sound right, does it? Not at all. The Cleveland Cavaliers are favored by 9 points, and the total is 221.5. Kyle Korver, who's missed the last few games with that foot issue, he is questionable for this game. If he misses, there's more minutes that go to J.R. Smith, to Iman Shumpert. Channing Frye gets a little bit of extra playing time as well, normally in that situation, but none of them become super core lock type of guys. Korver's a 20-minute a game sort of a player. Jeff Green has already been ruled out. So that really does help Aaron Gordon, which we'll talk about here in a sec. Let's talk about the point guards. Kyrie Irving is at $8,600. That feels too high for me. It is a positive matchup for Kyrie going up against the Magic, but that price is too high. I much prefer Kyrie if we look across to DraftKings, where he's at $7,800. Now that, at $7,800 for Kyrie, is a usable price, and I think it's a very good price. He's averaging only 33 across his last 5 games, but he's coming off a 43-pointer in his last performance, and you'd think getting 40 against the Magic is not going to be too much of a challenge for Kyrie Irving here. So I think on DraftKings it's a pretty good option. On FanDuel at 86, I reckon you can do a significant amount better. As for Lord Alfred Payton, he's at 7,600, just keeps on racking up triple-doubles, had 50 in the last game, averaging 41 across his last 5. The Kyrie Irving defense is not anything for anybody to be scared about, so I think at 7,600, Payton is okay. It is a high price, obviously, but I would look to him more as a tournament type of guy. Yeah, he could get 35 points, no problem. But he's got the upside to go for 50, and getting 50 at 7,600 is a pretty good result. And we've seen him multiple times get those big scores. So I wouldn't be into him in cash, but I am into Alfred Payton in tournaments quite a bit. At shooting guard, Evan Fournier at 56. I reckon he's a really good cash option. I think you're going to get 27, 28 out of him almost every night he goes out there, and that's exactly what you want out of a cash play. Same on DraftKings, where he comes in at 5,700. And J.R. Smith at 3,600 has been shooting the lights out, 14 threes in his last 3 games, dropped in 31 points in the last one. He's at 3,600. That is great. He could obviously shit the bed like he's done for the previous 5 months of the season. Yes, he was out for months of it, but he was still terrible. And that might not work, but at 3,600, with the odds are he's going for 23, 24 at least. I think that JR at that sort of a price is fine. Jody Meeks, Shumpert, Hazonia, those guys, I don't think there's a huge amount for us to be too focused on with those guys. At small forward, Terry Ross, 4,300, had a stinker in the last game, but had been putting up some decent numbers. I don't trust him as a cash option. I look at him more as a tournament type play, especially where he comes in at 52 on DraftKings. That's almost a no-go for me. But on FanDuel at the 43, I like it. I like that upside there a lot for him. And as for LeBron James, well, he just dropped a casual 82 in the last game against the Pacers in that double overtime game. He is at 10,700, LeBron. The problem is that after playing 50 plus minutes in that last game, and this is a matchup against the Magic, could this game be over early? Yes. And that limits, well, it doesn't limit because LeBron's going to play minutes anyway, but instead of playing 37, he might play 31. And then getting to 58, 59 points might be a little bit of a challenge for LeBron in that sort of a situation. So I would look at him in a tournament if inexplicably the Magic somehow keep it close or the Cavs shit the bed or whatever happens and the game keeps close and then they roll LeBron out there for millions of minutes. But otherwise, I can't see him being a strong cash play. At 10-2 on DraftKings, it is better, and I would consider that more for cash over on DraftKings. But at FanDuel, at the 10-7, just with those concerns I have about this game perhaps being a blowout and LeBron maybe not playing as many minutes, that's why I'd be a little bit cautious. Kevin Love is at 7,300. I like the matchup for Lovey. I think he can beat that value. He's at 7-3 on both sides. I think he goes for over 35. He could push 40. I'm in on Kevin Love on this one. Well, Aaron Gordon has been crushing it. He's got a 47-point average over his last three. Dropped in 50 in the last game. He's at 5,800. Without Jeff Green, he's going to go from 29 minutes to 36 minutes. That's what we've seen the pattern being for him recently, and that works out pretty bloody well. And I think that Aaron Gordon at 5,800 is a really good option on FanDuel. At 64 on DraftKings, I'm probably less interested, and I'd more be looking at him as a tournament sort of guy, but I don't think that by any means is it a write-off, and he's got pretty good value, especially, again, with Jeff Green ruled out already. We know that it's a decent spot here for Aaron Gordon. At center, we're looking at Nikola Vucevic and Tristan Thompson. Tomo is at $5,000. I just don't really feel that for him. I don't see much upside in that or in cash value, really, while Vuce is at $8,400. The matchup is not an ideal one for Vucevic, so to me, he is a fade in this matchup against the Cavs. Let's move on now to the next game, and that is the Toronto Raptors. They're taking on the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers are favored by 2.5, and the total is 206 here. PJ Tucker is dealing with a sore knee. He missed the last game. He's questionable here. If he misses, we're going to see more minutes for guys like Delon Wright, for Norm Powell perhaps, for maybe Damari Carroll. Perhaps that gives some extra minutes to Jonas Valanciunas as well. We saw him getting at least 27 minutes in the last 4 games, some with Tucker, some without. So there is a boost to quite a few players if PJ is out. If PJ's in, he's not really a useful player anyway. At point guard, let's look at Jeff Teague. Is at $7,000.
My name is Jeff.
He has been playing relatively well. Had a nice 37-pointer against the Cavs in the last game. But I'm not totally into him at his FanDuel price, but at 65 on DraftKings I am. I think that there's real value here in Teague at 6,500 over on DraftKings. I think it's a solid play, and it's a cash option, and there's GPP upside as well. It's still good on FanDuel at 7,000. It's just not as ideal as what that one is. At 3,600, Delon Wright. I would have a look at Delon as a tournament play if PJ Tucker is out. We've seen him play at the 3 a little bit, Delon. His defensive numbers have been good, but otherwise I wouldn't really consider him too much. And Corey Joseph at 5,400. Had a couple of big games recently, Corey, but I don't really see it for him at 5,400. There are definitely better options out there than Corey Joseph at that sort of a price tag. At shooting guard, Monte Ellis is at 4,500. He will start, but he is averaging 14 points across the last 3 because he is not good. He could beat that value, clearly. It's not a great matchup for him. I don't think there's a huge amount of value in Monte Ellis at that price tag. DeMar DeRozan at 92 is always worth a look as a tournament guy. He averages 41 the last 3 times against the Pacers. I wouldn't really use him at cash at 9,200. I think that there is not much value in that, but there's great tournament upside for a 50-pointer. 86 on DraftKings, he comes a little bit closer to cash value, but still probably looking more as a tournament-type player. At small forward, CJ Miles went off in the last game. He's a 3,600. Consider him like a J.R. Smith, a guy who could easily go off, but we don't have a massive amount of confidence. In fact, I have more confidence in J.R. Smith than I do at CJ Miles. But we saw he had 27 points and 5 triples in that last game, Miles. And that resulted in 39 FanDuel points. And at 3,600, that's fantastic value. Really just a GPP guy. No way we can trust that. Paulie George is now at 8,900. He dropped 72 against the Cavs. I'm not sure that at 8,900 Paul George is the best way to go. At 81 on DraftKings, I'm all for that. I reckon there's really good value in him at 8,100, and we've seen him play fairly well against the Raptors in the playoffs last year. His last few regular season matchups haven't been as ideal against them, but he is on a real roll, averaging 51 over the last 5, so I couldn't blame you if you put him into a lineup, but especially on DraftKings, it's a real good situation. Carroll and Tucker, I don't think there's much to really see with either of those guys. The Deuce Young at 4,500. The minutes are sort of coming back for Thad. He's averaging 30 over the last 3. That's 30 points and 30 minutes. And at 4,500, give me 30 points and I'm really happy. So I think that 4,500, despite some of the poor performances he has put in, he's fine. He's at 48 on DraftKings. I don't see a problem with using Thad at that sort of a price tag. While Serge Ibaka had a big game in the last one, fueled by 6 blocks. It gave him 45 points. He's at 5,600 there, Serge. And I think it's a good price for Serge. I think there is value in that. 5,600, what do you need from him? 28 points and then you're there? And I don't think that's too much of a stretch to get out of Serge. He's averaging 31 over his last 5 games. Not a problem to consider Serge an option there also. At centre, Jonas Valanciunas. Now, this is a little bit of a risky one. 5,500 for Jonas, but he's averaging 37 over his last 3, 32 over his last 5 because Dwayne Casey's woken up. He's realised that, shit, this guy's good. Maybe we should play him more than 20 minutes. And it's been 4 straight games of 27 plus minutes. Now, this could all come unraveled because Casey's a knob. But I feel pretty good about Jonas coming out there and playing his 26, 27 and exceeding 30 points. So I'm in for Jonas. It might blow up and bite me in the ass, but I'm in for it. 59 on DraftKings does sour me slightly, just that extra price tag on him, but I still think that he has some decent value right now. Miles Turner is at 6,500, has been terrible lately. This is an okay type matchup for Miles, but only would look at him as a tournament type of guy. At 59 for him on DraftKings, I think that's a better value for Miles Turner over on DraftKings, but still has been nowhere near that. And we look at that more as a tournament type play, I think. All right, now before we head on to talk about the next game, I need to tell you about today's sponsor. Yes, today's sponsor, and that is, if I could find my little graphic, Blue Apron. Yes, Blue Apron. New sponsor to the podcast. If you don't know what Blue Apron is, it's the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the United States. What they do is it's providing restaurant quality meals for you to cook at home. And there are numerous benefits from Blue Apron. Not only do you improve your own cooking skills, but you get to eat high quality food at home. It actually saves you money because you're not wasting any food. Because with Blue Apron, everything comes pre-proportioned. So instead of having to go, and just think, if you're a person who lives on your own, right? And Blue Apron will come and say, it's a meal for 2, whatever. You cook that and you have the rest for your lunch the next day. But if you go to, say, a supermarket, the farmer's market, whatever, to the shops to go to buy food, you need to buy some lettuce. You've got to buy a whole lettuce in a lot of cases. You need to buy a whole tub of, a whole jar of cumin seeds when you've got to use 1 teaspoon. And then what do? You have a pantry full of cumin seeds that lasts 5 years and goes out of date. No, Blue Apron just provides all this stuff in pre-measured packages for you. So providing you restaurant quality meals, high quality food, very tasty recipes, and they're reducing food waste as well, which I think is a really fantastic thing that they do. Improving your cooking skills is fantastic. You force yourself to cook these things, which they're not hard to do. These meals, I said, I've been, they don't deliver to Australia, which I wish they did, but I have been exposed to them in my trips to the States. My brother lives over there. He's used Blue Apron before. And, going and doing that sort of stuff and using these products, it really enhances your skills and your ability as a cook, as well as your confidence. So you go to get these things and you practice all your knife skills, cutting up your onions, cutting up your veggies, and you get a lot faster at it, more confidence with everything. It's got a real easy to follow recipes, and you know what? I wish I was there. I wish I was in the States at the moment getting some Blue Apron, because the meals they've got coming up, if you were to go and sign up with Blue Apron, the meals coming up this week are good. And if you guys do happen to get Blue Apron, I want to see these foods that you prepare. Cumin Sichuan shrimp fried rice looks ridiculous. Sichuan is beautiful, extremely spicy, but fantastic. Now, this one intrigues me. Spicy chicken sandwiches with Alabama white sauce. What's Alabama white sauce? I've never heard that before, but it looks good. Mole spiced beef chili with russet potato and lime creme fraiche. That looks pretty good as well. And the crispy gnocchi with fontina cheese sauce and roasted baby broccoli. Now, all these things are things that you can cook quickly, cook at home with fantastic ingredients, and they're going to taste fantastic. So if you are someone who is taking up this Blue Apron offer, which I really suggest that you do, send me a photo of what you cook. Let me know what you cook and let me know how good it tastes, because it makes my mouth water over here just looking at it. Now, go and check out these menus, but the way you do it, you go to blueapron.com and you got to use our own special URL, and that's blueapron.com/LOFB. So you can go over there, and if you sign up, you get 3 free meals with free shipping just by going to blueapron.com/LOFB. You'll love how good it feels and tastes to create your own incredible home cooked meals with Blue Apron. Go to blueapron.com/LOFB. Blue Apron is a better way to cook. Couldn't agree more. You do need to go and check out Blue Apron. It is a fantastic service, and the meals look absolutely astonishingly tasty. So go and check that out. All right, let's now look at that next game that's up on the slate, and that is Charlotte and Washington. The Wizards are favored by 4, and the total is 217.5 points. Injury-wise, it's just John O'Brien for Charlotte, so nothing to be too concerned about there. Just one thing we do need to watch out for, not for this game, but for games moving forward, is John Wall has got 15 techs now, so he's 1 tech away from a suspension. So just let's be aware of that. Kemba Walker, $7,600. The John Wall matchup is a nightmare for him at $7,600. I don't like Kemba at that sort of a price. Now, as for Johnny, 10-4 is a big chunk of change. He has been a little bit under the last couple of games, but prior to that, he was crushing it. I like him more as a tournament play at 10,400. Otherwise, it just does feel a little bit too expensive to take Wall at 10,400. It's not extraordinarily high, but it is a little bit high. So you get involved with him on DraftKings though at 9,700. That's really appealing. 9,700, much better than the 10-4. 50 pointer for John against Charlotte should be looking like a pretty decent deal. Brattles Beal at 7,500. Brattles has been a little under recently. It's not a terrible matchup, but I don't think that it's an altogether strong one here for him. While Nick Batum at 63 has been... I don't think you look at Batum as a tournament guy. I think you can look at him as a solid cash guy, but comes maybe a little bit under. And you might get 32 out of him instead of the 34, 35. And it's not quite where it needs to be, but it's not that far off to consider him a write-off. At small forward, Bojan Bogdanovic went off in the last game, but he'd been really limited recently, always just a tournament player, while Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, good game recently, but I don't really see that as being a good option. Otto Porter the same. Although his salary is coming down, and he did play well in the last one, he played pretty pitifully in the previous games leading up to this one. Frank the Tank at 5,400. I don't see the upside. I don't see the floor being great either. Well, 55 for Markieff Morris. He's nowhere near where we need to be. Jason Smith was a surprise DMPCD in the last game. That probably won't happen again, but also I don't think that he's going to be a DFS type of player. Cody Zeller at 4,900 has done well against the Wizards in the past. I don't think that he is a very strong cash play. I think he's got some tournament upside to get you maybe 33 or 34. But I don't think that he is a strong play by any stretch, while Machin Gortat is a terrible one. And Jan Mahinmi's a punty $3,800 sort of a guy. That's his price on FanDuel. He's 31 on DraftKings, which I actually really like. At 31 on DraftKings, Mahinmi could get 22, 23 minutes and easily exceed value there. So I like him at 31 on DraftKings. And he's got a little bit of GPP upside over on FanDuel. Let's head into the next game now. We'll talk about the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers. Spanish Chocolate could be back. He's missed those last week or so with a hamstring injury, and that does impact guys like TJ McConnell and Sauce Castillo, and it has a trickle-down effect for other guys as well, like Timothée Luwawu-Cabarrot, Alex Poitras, players like that across the wing, just an extra body to throw in there. Now, we don't know if Sergio is going to be back at this point. If I had to say anyway, I'd say no, he's out, but anything can really happen at this point. The Sixers are favoured by 1, and the total is a very robust 221 points. At point guard, Jeremy Lin, 6,100. He's been coming in at about 30 points a game over his last 5, which at 6,100 is fine. The matchup isn't too much of a bother for Lin. I reckon he is solid for cash. I'm not sure his upside's really high enough for a tournament, but I think he's a solid cash play. Whereas TJ McConnell at 6,000, I think that's too high, especially with the potential return of Rodriguez. Spencer Dinwiddie, Isaiah Whitehead, I don't think there's a lot to really like with those guys. At shooting guard, Timothée Luwawu-Cabarrot is at 4,200. The last time he played against the Nets, he dropped in 33. He had 26 in his last outing. He's averaging 24 across the last 5. I don't think there's anything wrong with Luwawu-Cabarrot as being an option here. He's been playing well. He's getting the minutes. He's looking solid. I think it's a totally fine play. Now, at 5,100 for him on DraftKings, I'd probably be a little more hesitant. I still think that he could be used, but on FanDuel at the 42, it's a really good play. I don't like Sean Kilpatrick all that much, while Sauce Castillo at 44, he's getting some nice assist numbers, which is fine for seasonal leagues, but it's not really translating to big bulk DFS type numbers, while Karis LeVert's not really doing a huge amount. At small forward, Justin Anderson at 4,000. He hasn't been great, but he's still putting up close to 20 points, which at $4,000 is pretty close to where you want it to be. I think you want to look at him more as a GPP guy, because if he actually plays 30 and gets everything cracking like we know he can, and we've seen him do before, then 35 is not out of the question from him, and that makes him a very interesting GPP guy. Now, Justin's at $5,000 on DraftKings, and I have no interest in $5,000 for him. That's too expensive. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson's at 53. The numbers have been pretty good, but they're not really fantastic for DFS. I reckon you can probably do better than Rondé at that salary. Richaun Holmes at 6,000, really limited by foul trouble in the last game, but this is a decent spot for Holmesy. 6,000 just feels like it's a little bit too much, especially the 63 on DraftKings. So he's not a strong play. Dario Saric, I'm worried about the minutes and the heel. He's at 7,500. He played 24 minutes. He could be on another minutes restriction. There is no way I want that. And Trevor Booker has very limited interest to me. At center, Shawnee Long, the sexy boy. He is at $4,000. If we have Holmesy running into foul trouble again, Long could easily exceed 20 points, and that gives him some tournament-type upside. We've seen a 30-pointer out of him in limited minutes the other day. I like him for a tournament, but that's really about it. When we look at Long, he's at 39 on DraftKings too, while Brook Lopez is at 7,900. Lopez has been absolutely crushing it at the moment. I like him here. This is a great spot. On DraftKings at 73, it's even better, and he is not quite a core guy, but he's pretty bloody close to it at that sort of salary against this sort of opposition and with his sort of level of performance. So I do like Brook Lopez quite a bit. Let's move on now to the next game. We've got the Chicago Bulls and the New York Knicks. The Bulls are favored by 3, and the total is 207 points. Let's talk point guards for that one. Rajon Rondo, we have to start with him. 7,100. Actually, let's talk injuries first, because Carmelo Anthony has been upgraded to Pro Bowl. Yesterday, I thought I didn't know if we'd see Melo again for the rest of the season, but they've upgraded him to Pro Bowl. I don't think we're seeing 30-minute Melo. Lance Thomas is listed as questionable at the moment. He is still dealing with that sore hip. At point guard, Rondo putting up some really good numbers, but he's at 7,100. I just don't feel great about him at 7,100 at all. I think we can find a better way to get that sort of production than spend 7,100 on Rajon Rondo. Rugged Ronnie Baker at 3,500. You know the minutes are going to be there, but his production in general is terrible. But that's minimum salary for a guy playing 40 minutes, 36 on DraftKings. He did have a 25-point game the other day. There is some tournament upside there. Now, it's probably going to happen in one of 4 games that he puts up decent numbers, but that's why you look in a tournament, so you can load up with a guy like Russ Westbrook and stack your lineup with some of these high-priced guys. So that's why Ron Baker does come into consideration there. At shooting guard, Courtney Lee at 4,600. I just don't see it with him. Too much uncertainty. Well, Denzel Valentine is just a tournament type of a player. Justin Holiday is a guy that does interest me. He's been pretty useless actually recently, but if you want to go outside the box in a GPP, then he could be a way to go. Well, Jim Butler at small forward, $10,000. I feel 50 points for Jim is not a tough ask here. 98 on DraftKings is a pretty good spot for Jimmy. Paulie Zipser, Lance Thomas Mello, I don't see any of those guys being useful options. I should have mentioned the machine, Sasha Vujacic. I don't know if he will continue to start. I would absolutely hope not, but who knows with this disgusting franchise. At power forward, Nikola Mirotic, 5,600. Disappointing in the last game. Bobby Portis outplayed him, but I'd be okay with going back to the well with Mirotic here. Portis can't be expected to do that, and we know that Højbjerg has no set plan to do anything, so he could just easily run back and get Mirotic out there and playing some good minutes. I think it's a good spot for Mirotic. I understand if you're hesitant and you probably want to go then tournaments with him, but I don't think that Portis is all of a sudden taking over this role. Kristaps is at 7,200, a little bit down in his production recently. Porzingis, I'm not fully into him, especially at an over $7,000 price. While Bob Portis at 38, fine, take a flyer on him. But he was big in the last game. The game before that, he had like 6 points. So that's what you get with Portis. You don't expect production because he just doesn't bring it. At center, Robin Lopez, I don't feel that at all. While Billy Hernan Gomez at 55 has been limited by coaching, 24 point average in 24 minutes over the last 3 games, and at 5,500 you need more than that. But I don't have full confidence that Hornacek's going to give him more playing time than that, because that has not been the pattern. So I don't think that he's strong. I'm sure he's strong. I don't think he's a strong DFS option here just because of all that mucking around that we see from Jeff Hornacek. Let's move on to the next game now. We've got the Denver Nuggets and the New Orleans Pelicans. No spread for this one because we're waiting for the status of a few players. One of them being Anthony Davis of the New Orleans Pelicans. He sprained his ankle in the last game, returned to action, but now we've just got to see how that goes. While Denver, we've got a few guys fighting. Will Barton, Jameer Nelson, and Darrell Arthur are all listed as questionable. Obviously, if Nelson and Barton are out, we get the Blue Arrow getting a boost. We get Emmanuel Mudiay getting a boost. If Davis is out, more Boogie, more Drew Holiday, maybe Dante Cunningham, but unlikely. It's going to go more to Boogie and to Drew. At the point guard position, let's have a look at Drew Holiday. I like him at 7,300, even more so if Davis is out, but I don't think it's a bad option even if Davis is in. He comes in at 73 on both sides, and yeah, we've seen that it's not... He has adjusted to Boogie being there, and he is starting to put up some pretty good lines. So I'm okay with Drew, especially in a matchup against Denver, where point guards do tend to put up some good numbers. Now, for the Denver point guards, I don't think we want to really look at them. If Nelson's in, if he is out, then Mudiay and Murray do become options for tournaments, and you might even consider Murray a cash play, but I'm not quite there with him just yet. At shooting guard, Jordan Crawford, well, he's going to play 20 plus minutes, and he's going to play, he's going to shoot, he's going to hit threes, he gets assists. He's at 3,700. I feel good about him getting 20 points at least, and that's a pretty good start. So I like Jordy Crawford there. Timmy Frazier and Etuan Moore, I don't. While Gaz Harris, he's at 6,100. He'd need Barton out for me to use him, and I still think that 6,100 is probably just a little bit too high for Gaz. He's at 54 on DraftKings, which is better, but it's still not fantastic or ideal. Solly Hill, no way. The Rooster, Danilo Gallinari at 6,600. Big game for him in the last one, but I just don't feel confident of him being able to achieve or exceed that level of value. While Wilson Chandler at 67, I can say the same for him. I just don't have... I like what they do. I just think that they're continually overpriced. Tone Davis at 11.2. If he plays, no problem. He averages 64 points against the Nuggets the last 3 times they've played. Averages 64. No problem with using Davis. Ken Fareed at 55. That's too high for Fareed. He's going to be 23 to 30 minutes, and which one it is, who knows? And even when he gets to 30, he's not smashing through that value. While Nikola Jokic at $10,000 has really struggled against Boogie and against Davis before. I think it's okay to use him, but there is a significant amount of risk just given the way that he has struggled against these guys before. We saw it in the last game, really, really poor. He's averaging 21 points in the last 3 times against the Pelicans. That's not ideal. Boogie at 9,600 is a fantastic play. 10-3 on DraftKings, still really good. And I don't think Mason Plumlee really is going to be useful to anybody. The Milwaukee Bucks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder are favored by 4.5, and the total here is 211 points. We've already had Malcolm Brogdon and John Henson being ruled out for Milwaukee. Let's talk point guard. So we're going to look at Daly. He's a minimum salary player. He put up 24 in the last game. I don't see his upside being all that high. I also don't see his floor being all that high. So yeah, 3,500 starter, maybe, but I don't feel great about Daly. I don't think there's a huge amount of value in him at that sort of price. He's all right, but far from great, obviously. Russ at 13.6, really hard to fade him. That price is high, but you feel like he's going to get 60 no matter what, and that's a pretty fair return at that sort of a salary. At shooting guard, Yanni is at 10,100. I feel pretty good about Yanni dropping over 50 here. He dropped 70 in the last game. He's averaging 59 across the last three. 52 against his last three games against the Thunder. And remember, some of those weren't this season. So 2 of them weren't this season, so that shows the sort of level of play that he's putting up against this team. So I'm all for Yanni at 10,100. Vic Oladipo at 5,900. Man, if he could come down to 56, I'd be all over it. At 59, I think it's okay, and I actually don't mind it as a cash play. You can probably do better in a lot of cases, but I don't think that it's a bad situation here for Victor Oladipo. At small forward, Chrissy Middleton at 62. I like Middleton at 62, and at 61 on DraftKings, he's got 35 plus upside, while Tone Snell is always a shot in the dark. At power forward, Taj, Ennis, I can't see using any of them. They're all just cannibalizing each other's value. Or Domantas Sabonis, of course not. At center, Steve Adams, 48. Maybe you throw him into a tournament. It is a good matchup for him, but I don't feel great about it. While the Bucks centers, Greggy Munro at 6,000 is too expensive. And Thon McCurr at 35 is absolutely a GPP guy. But this is a matchup where he could get eaten by Cantor, by Adams, really destroyed. So it's not a strong one to me. I don't think it's very good, but it's a multiple lineup. Hey, let's see. This guy had a big game the other day type of situation. Let's move on to the next one now, and that is Memphis and San Antonio. The Spurs are favored by 8.5, and the total is 193 points. This is not an ideal situation. We've already got Danny Green ruled out. We've got Aldridge questionable, Marcus Gasol questionable, JaMychal Green questionable, Tone Allen questionable, and Andy Harrison is listed as probable. It's already not a good situation because of the low total. The 193 is not ideal. The Spurs could smash them, but there's a lot of uncertainty. Now, if Aldridge is out, I would hope that David Lee would come in and play, unlike the last game where we got dicked around completely. But that's a risk that you have to take. With Green out, we're going to get John Simmons getting some playing time, but not as much as last game because Manu Ginobili will be back in this one. He rested the last game, so he takes some of that value that Simmons absorbed in that last game. If we start with the point guards, Tone Parker had 29 in the last game at 3,700. That's a brilliant return. But it's because there was no Parker, because there was no Green, no Ginobili, no Aldridge. He got a lot more usage, and I'm not really confident in him doing that again. You could take a flyer on him, but I don't really think that it's a great option. Pat Mills, not either. While Conley at $8,000 has been absolutely crushing it. If Gasol is out, I'm all aboard for Conley, even though it's a bad matchup. But if Marc Gasol plays, I'm not really that interested in Mike at that sort of a salary level. Manu at 3,700. I think there's upside in Manu at 3,700. Get your 22, 23 if Dan Green's out. Not a problem. He's at 33 on DraftKings. I think it's a significant value type play there as well. Vince Carter rested the last game. He should be back. I'm not sure that it's a great spot. He's at 3,900. I reckon you can probably do better. John Simmons, as I touched on already, 3,500, had 22 in the last game, but he won't be playing 34 minutes, I don't think, even with Green out, because Ginobili will take some of that playing time, so he's much less strong than he was in the last game. Or Kawhi at 9,200, maybe a little high for Kawhi, but not far off. 91 on DraftKings, you could totally use that and get away with it and feel pretty good about it in the end. At power forward, Aldridge at 7,000, totally fine with using Aldridge if he plays, but we just don't know that at this point. While Zach Randolph, JaMychal Green, well, those guys depend on the status of Green and, of course, of Marc Gasol. If both Green and Gasol are out, then Randolph at 5,600 has value. But if not, no. And same with JaMychal Green. If Gasol is out, he's fine. The other guys who get value if these players are out, Jim Ennis, Troy Daniels, they become really interesting, cheap options. Ennis had 32 points at 3,600 in the last game. So if these guys are out, Ennis definitely becomes an option that we look at. At center, Powell is at 5,500. I feel all right about Powell at 5,500 here, especially if Mark sits. He's averaging 34 across the last three Gasol, so I like him here. While Brandon Wright at 36 is an option if if Gasol is out. He dropped 22 in the last game. He's averaging 20 across those last 3 games with Gasol missing, so he becomes an option in that sort of a scenario. I wouldn't have any interest in Marc Gasol even if he plays. I think he'll be on a bit of a limit in terms of his minutes. Portland and the Utah Jazz. No spread for this one yet. Georgie Hill is questionable, and I don't think that Derek Favors will play. If you want to assume that Hill is out, then Shelvin Mack gets the value bump there, and so does Joe Ingles. And with Favors out, it's Boris Diaw and Joe Johnson, but not enough. And Diaw was great in the last game, but I don't think we can really rely upon that sort of a level of production. At point guard, Dame is at 9,200. Terrible matchup for him, but he's playing exceptionally well, we know. So he's a GPP guy and really hard to trust for cash, but he is definitely a tournament sort of guy where I'm not all that interested in George Hill here. And as I said, Shelvin Mack gets the value if Hill happens to be out. He's a $3,600 player. At shooting guard, CJ McCollum, $7,000. Yeah, the Jazz matchup makes it a little tougher for me to use CJ, coming off a back-to-back for him as well. Probably a fade, but not a strong one, while Alan Crabb at 39 is always just a GPP type of player. Rodney Hood has been terrible. He's got the upside. He's got a 30-point upside. If George Hill is out, I would consider him a multi-entry GPP type of a guy, but that's really it. Joey Johnson at 41, not really seeing too much there with him, while Jingling Joe Ingles at 44, producing really good standard league or seasonal league numbers, but not really great DFS ones at this point. Gordo Hayward, 7,800. I'm on board for Gordo here. I think he's a good value. He plays well against Portland. He's had a couple of down games. I reckon we see a bit of a bounce back from Hayward here. And yeah, I think he's a pretty strong option, especially on DraftKings at 6,700. That's ludicrously low, and that's a really good spot for him. Mo Harkless, I don't see enough upside to use him there. Noel Vonleh at 44, I like. Putting up some pretty decent numbers. I think there's some good upside there, especially with the use of Nurkic injury. He's at 4,000 on DraftKings there, so a little bit to see. While Al-Farouq Aminu at 48, I'm not totally involved with that, especially in this matchup against Rudy Gobert. Let's talk Rudy Gobert. Well, actually, Rudy Gobert just eliminates Myers Leonard as well. Gobert at 9,200 on FanDuel, probably a little high. Gobert at 83 on DraftKings, probably a bit low. So I like it on DraftKings a lot. At 92 on FanDuel, I reckon we're probably pushing the friendship a little bit at that sort of a price. Just makes it a little bit tough to use, in my opinion. All right, let's go on to the next one. It's Minnesota and Golden State. The Warriors are favored by 13.5, but as I've said plenty of times before, the Wolves do give the Warriors trouble, and they can keep these games closer than what we might expect. Let's talk point guards. Rubio and Curry. Curry is at $10,000. I don't think that's bad to use Curry here. I think 50 should be around the aim. More of a tournament guy, though I don't feel that strongly about him for cash. He's at 97 on DraftKings, which is obviously a little bit better. Shooting guard. Oh no, probably should talk Rubio. 7,900 for Rubio. Too high. He does do pretty well against the Warriors normally, but I think that 7,900 is too high for Rubio. 77 on DraftKings, also too high. While Chrissy Dunn's a shooting guard. He was doing well, but recently, limited. Don't really know what's going on with Dunn at the moment, so that's probably a fade for me at this point. Klay Thompson at 7,500, I like it. The salary has gone up, but I do like it for tournaments because he is a little bit fluky with what he's been doing this year. Dunn... Yeah, I've talked about him already. Andre Iguodala at 5,200. I like Iggy here. He's been putting up pretty solid numbers. I think that he's fine to get you 25 points. It's a pretty nice spot for Iguodala. While Wigo at 7,200 is always just a tournament guy given the way that he plays. At power forward, Gorgie Jeng 56. I like Jeng at 56. I think there's almost no way he doesn't reach his floor. And has got some upside. The minutes he's playing have been great. While Draymond at 7,700, I don't really like Draymond here in this matchup, especially at that price. I think there are better options. Karl Anthony Towns at 10.2. We talk about Towns being great, and he is, but he's struggling to get to 5x value most nights, and I reckon at 10.2 you can find better ways to spend that money, so he's not going to be a strong option to me. Of course, neither is Zaza Pachulia. Let's move on now to the last game of the night, the Dallas Mavericks and the Sacramento Kings. This is the most avoid game of all time. The Mavericks have ruled out Wes Matthews due to rest. JJ Barea is questionable due to rest. Dirk Nowitzki is questionable due to a sore right Achilles. Harrison Barnes is questionable due to rest. Seth Curry is questionable due to a sore left shoulder. And the Kings, multiple players are going to rest, but we have absolutely no idea who they are. So honestly, me going through this game, anything I say means nothing, because by the time you get to an hour before the game, everything will be different. So in general, avoid this game. You just avoid it. In cash, definitely. Now, in tournaments, you can take a look at guys like Bud Hield, Corley Stein. You can take flyers on players from the Mavericks, such as Nerlens Noel. If Dirk sits or if Barnes sits, he gets 35 minutes. A big role for him. Yogi Ferrell, if Seth Curry sits. JJ Barea, if he doesn't sit. Nicholas Brasino is another really deep GPP guy. You look at, on the King side of things, Benny McLemore, Langston Galloway. There's just so many variables in this game. Yeah, Scalabissier's in a pretty good spot here, I think, in this matchup against the Mavs. But so much of it depends on who is in and who is out for both teams. And with potentially 7 or 8 guys up in the air, you can't trust any of this for cash. And the Kings normally don't give this advice until an hour before the game. So using it in cash is going to be impossible. Now, Dallas might do it a little bit early, but they came out today and gave all this information out. So who knows if they're going to update it in time. They can be notoriously fickle with changing their lineups late as well. So there is a lot not to like here, but of course we'll update this to the minute over on Basketball Monster. But in general, this is an absolute stay away to me in cash. And really, yeah, you're just throwing darts at a board for GPPs. And that's not the way that is a great way to end up making money, I don't think. All right, let's wrap it up for today with the picks of the day. We'll start with FanDuel. Ronnie Baker at 3,500, Drew at 73, and Russ at 13.6. Jordan Crawford 37, Klay Thompson 75, and Yanni at 10.1. Justin Anderson 4,000. The Pencil 58 is a tournament guy if he plays, and LeBron at 10.7. Thaddeus Young 45, Gorgie Jeng 56, and Jokic at 10. While Sean Long 4,000, Jonas Valanciunas 55, and DeMarcus at 96. On DraftKings, Rugged Ronnie Baker 36, Jeff Teague 65, and Yanni at 9.9. Manu's 33, Clay is 7, and Jim is 9.8, Jim Butler. John Simmons 3,000, Chris Middleton 61, and LeBron at 10.2. Vonleh 4,000, Love 73, and Boogie 10.3. Shawnee Long 39, Brook Lopez 73, and Rudy Gobert 8,300. All right, don't forget, check out today's sponsor, blueapron.com/LOFB to get yourself 3 free meals. And let me know if you do, and let me know how they taste, because they look bloody good. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_Beeble, and subscribe to this podcast, YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, all those places. Leave a review, it's much appreciated. Share it on social media. Good luck to you with your DFS lineups. Good luck if your seasonal league is still going. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Brandon Jennings.